welcome back to Italy. Today we celebrate 10 feature-length episodes of this epic restoration by bringing my more camera-shy partner Emanuele center stage. Because not only are we going to run through the most ornately decorated room that this palace once had, but we can already bring you some incredibly satisfying before and after transitions as we've been hard at work at this space for the last 6 months. We end today's sumptuous tour with a jaw-dropping preview of next week's episode. So grab that cup of tea or glass of Chianti and settle in for one of the more meaningful transformations of this palace renovation. Let's jump right in, and comparing the state of the room to how it was when we first found it to the original condition of what was once called the sitting room of the red fireplace is rather distressing, to say the least. The enormous cavity in the ceiling was once occupied by this gorgeous, large piece of artwork that has since been sold off. But thankfully, these 2 above-door artworks were saved, were prevented from being sold, and remain with us. A small indication of a way that we could use the room with their floral motifs. Now this room entirely occupies and bookends one of the wings, meaning that it was very exposed to the overgrowth. And so clearing this was a major job within its own right, but doing so revealed this gorgeous double aspect balcony, and it allowed natural light to enter the space for the first time in a generation. And so, cutting to a scene that's from our very first episode in this series, we moved into the room a piece of furniture we've been lugging around and trying to find a place for 2.5 years. Finally, it acting as that island centerpiece from which we could build everything else out from, even if the ideas for what could eventually be in this space were still forming at this stage. And now for a quick throwback to a story that I've not really told before on this channel, to our very first renovation project in the countryside of Tuscany, and to M's very first studio that he spent 1 year crafting and curating into this beautifully characteristic space. Far smaller than the space that we're now dealing with, but a great place to draw inspiration. And a side note from me as Editor Jordan, it is such a flash from the past to drum up this old footage. It'll be quite the challenge to create a full episode about it, but if you'd like to see it, let me know down below, and I can share the story of what was such an important project for us. So back to the palazzo, and we took our next major design cue from the original name of this space, which has now lost its original function, but that could still guide us going forward, that of the red marble of the fireplace. And so we set a fresh challenge to our handy local marble artisans to create a new cut of matching Verona marble. And with this done, it was a really inspiring moment to then build the full design plan. So let's get into all those juicy details with the return supporter of our renovations. Millernote is a tool for organizing creative projects. And with this drag and drop design plan I've put together, you can see just how intuitive it is to create a coherent vision, with the first phase acknowledging the losses from the auction, the second being the layout, and then the third the finishes that we want to implement. And before delving into these details, I stacked these against a timeline of reference images. Now everything would be built around a structure which you should actually be quite familiar with if you saw my video on our plans for the kitchen renovation. In much the same way, I'll be showing you how we took the architect's drawing and were able to draw directly on top our intentions. This involved a central island, which would be, of course, that enormous desk, flanked on either side by 2 towering showcase pieces of furniture. Whether they be pieces like an open shelf library or a glass cabinet would remain to be seen based on what we could find. But crucially, we tied together all 3 elements with the same marble countertops. Finally, I hypothesized additional furnishings along the periphery if needed, which takes us to the final and more creative phase of how we'd actually execute this plan. But before I show you my mood board, it's important to anchor all of this creativity into practical steps, like making the new marble countertops match the existing elements in the room, build a short list of our favorite candidates to furnish the space, and to find the most appropriate lighting to create this dark academia vibe in the room. And tapping through to the mood board, you can see all the references that inform these important next steps. I was able to whip this up in a jiffy thanks to using one of Millernote's thousands of templates, and one of my favorite favorite things is to drag in different swatches to directly contrast against elements that are actually from the room to understand what's going to work best. And getting all these elements in place was super easy thanks to the web clipper tool to place images without the need to screenshot, as well as the vast existing library which you can simply drag and drop. And tapping out to the plan for a final time, the most helpful part of Millernote is its interactive shareability, because not only can you invite collaborators to your desktop project, you can also take them in situ with the Millernote mobile app. Enjoy Millernote entirely for free with no time limit by clicking the link in the description below. Now, one of the biggest challenges was how on earth we were going to compete with this mirror, which used to sit above the fireplace. There's no way that we could compete with that by finding anything nearly as comparable. So instead, we expanded the countertop space by adding yet more marble, with the remaining question being how we could source two matching pieces, one that could sit above the fireplace and the other on the opposite side of the room, also in theme with the style that we were going for. And that throwback shot to the kitchen construction is the answer to the question, because the upper parts of the credenza were never used. We put them away in storage and we realized that they were absolutely full of floral motifs. And so in a beautiful full circle moment, we put back together the disparate pieces of the upper part of the island that now live in the kitchen to see if we could extend their beauty successfully into what will become M's new studio. And as you can see, M was getting increasingly excited at the thought of it as I went to get the final column for the support, with the final step to clean up the crown, which was going to unify the disparate pieces and create a floral silhouette to bring it all together. And with that, let me hand over the reins to M to guide you through the space with all the changes that we made.
Welcome, benvenuti in what's going to become my studio. As you can see, we've got some pieces of furniture that may look familiar because we had been lugging them around for years, it's not a joke. And others which we have acquired more recently in different moments, however, always with a particular style in mind. The style I have always wanted to create my dream studio, working room, wherever you want to call it, in is essentially Natural History Museum meets apothecary meets cabinet of curiosity. In fact, my biggest inspiration is the place I love most in the entire world, which is in Tuscany near Pisa, where we have been living for a few years. It's the Natural History Museum of Calci, which is this museum dedicated to nature inside an ancient villa which was donated to the municipality, and every room is entirely covered floor to ceiling in these really imposing old world cabinetry which are brought to life with light and house, you know, specimens and
I fell over one of the specimens.
There's a twist, however. I don't want this to just be a representation of still nature as a natural history museum would be. I am going to incorporate my other passion, which is botany, so that we can actually weave live living beings still representing nature into the other elements of this room. For this reason, it's not just going to be a cabinet of curiosity, but it's going to be also a live herbarium. So a collection of plant specimens which are collected under a specific idea or vision, and that's exactly what we're going to do here. So as you know, when we renovate or restore furniture or places, we always try to never modify them in a way that would be definite, because we always think of ourselves as custodians rather than, you know, bulldozers going to places of furniture. So one thing I'm particularly proud of is I wanted to have some lights on this desk, not just for atmosphere, but also because it's such a wide desk, it's a focusing point of the room. It would have been amazing if we could have had also just as an important lighting source on it. But I didn't want to touch or ruin the wooden structure, nor the new marble we had commissioned, which I wanted to keep as a single piece. So what I did is, if you come here, after having found and sourced these two lamps, which then I realized after having bought them, they would be perfect for this place, I actually got a type of wire which is incredibly thin. is essentially just like a paper sheet. So being so thin, it's allowed me to wrap it underneath the marble slab without me having to excavate a channel in the wood of the desktop. These two credenzas also were just too delicious to pass on, and given that we had no need of them in the actual kitchen because we went for a different design, it was great that I could just kidnap them and bring them here. So of course this was a table that we found here, so it doesn't match. As I said, I just needed something that could sustain the weight because I wanted to sort of visualize it in the space, and I wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to be too overpowering because of having its twin right opposite. But actually it did work in reality as I thought it would in my mind. So it's going to stay here. Of course, we're going to be swapping this amazing looking table for a more appropriate credenza bottom. So the only element that was already here, which we have actually wanted to highlight rather than hide away, was the marble.
Yeah.
So we've got this beautiful red stone marble fireplace here, which is in need of a cleaning. It will not be used as a fireplace from now on.
So what's your intention with this space down here? If it won't be used as a fireplace, what do you have in mind for down there?
Honestly, I haven't thought of that yet. Part of me would want to install some grow lights underneath here and add it as a little niche for plants against the black ash on the walls.
I love that with like the downlighting idea. It would almost be like the plants are like a live fire. Obviously a completely different color, but it would be just as like visually vibrant in a way.
Yeah, and at that point it would be fun hand-picking some plants which would survive well in there, which would have leaves sort of mimicking flames. Now, in terms of items to fill all of these spaces and crevices, there's actually a lot to unpack, literally. This is the collection of shells, rocks and minerals I had as a child, together with the old underwear and sock that my mom used as filling in the box. So maybe we'll move that away. Yes, and this is basically all of the little trinkets I collected as I was growing up, which, as you can see, still are my passion and my hobby, and so these will now go back to their place of pride inside my adult cabin. So that's a nice moment, sort of like winking at your past child, saying, you know, you're still in here, you haven't gone away, you've just evolved.
I couldn't have put it better myself, and as Em puts the finishing touches on the lighting of the cabinets, it's a beautiful reminder that all of the hustle and hard work comes from a place of sincerity, that this almost mad, delusional vision that we both have for doing these extraordinary projects has its roots in an inner child that we are simply trying to nurture. And while we are far from done with this space, it feels wonderful to bring meaning back to this room. The desk that has all the functionality of a modern studio, and replacing the gilded grandeur of what came before with sentimentality and a new life with this rich greenery which contrasts so beautifully against the warm tones of the wood and the ochre on the walls. And while in many ways this story of this room is only just beginning, with the vast number of details that we need to manifest to fill this enormous space, it at least feels like it's a worthy companion to what came before. But more importantly for me, it's finally a place for Em's treasured plants to allow their roots to grow and settle in one place to call home. Join me next week as I take you back out into the gardens where we've been hard at work and where we found some incredible treasures hidden amongst the overgrowth.